Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's jump into today's episode.
Nicole, I am, first of all, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I said her name immediately and for welcoming everybody, but welcome everybody. I'm very excited to have Nicole on the show because we have been trying for months to make this happen. So, Nicole, please introduce yourself.
I feel like that's just indicative of probably everyone that's listening that knows how life can throw things in your way. And you've been patient and I've been patient. So I'm just happy to be here. So thank you so much. I'm Nicole Grinnell and I'm the founder of Bosun Solutions, which primarily focuses in staffing. And I've organically gotten there. I'm sure a lot of people can look back at their careers and see what led them to where they are now. But my background was in small business. My parents owned and operated that. I transitioned that into corporate EA world, always served C-levels, and now I'm in staffing. So I can't get away from business. I guess that's how I would describe myself.
I love it. Well, I'm super intrigued by how you grew up. What lessons can
Yeah.
you share with us from being around your parents that owned a business?
Yeah, lessons is a great way to put that. So many things. I mean, and I'll just be honest, like it's one of those things when you're in the heat of it, you're like, as a child, you're like, this is horrible. Why are we not going on vacations? Why don't we do things like normal families? But now you look back on it and you do see those valuable lessons that you learned. And again, back to what I think has led me to where I am today is I really had a unique perspective because I was technically one of the employees along with other non-relative employees. And then also had the side of hearing my parents and what it was like to run a business and to manage multiple employees. So I kind of had a front row seat to understand the employee need, employee complaints, employee problems, things that could be done better in a culture. And then also the business owner side where, it's just like mom and dad and parent, right? Each aspect has their own viewpoint and things that the other doesn't know about that they're dealing with. And I was sort of in the middle. So it gave me a really unique perspective to understand both sides and find ways to improve that.
Okay, that's amazing. First of all, I love that you have this legacy or it's been built on all these amazing foundational things. What is your favorite thing about owning a business?
So I love efficiencies. I love success in my personal and professional life. My kids even joke like, don't tell my mom that you want to accomplish something, like she's going to make it happen. So I love seeing success first and foremost. And it's probably a little idealistic, but I truly believe that, with hard work and a lot of dedication, it can be successful no matter what that looks like, right? Doesn't have to be to Apple successful, but maybe it's the time with your family or just vacation money and that's what you're working for, whatever that looks like to you and that success. But with hard work and a lot of dedication, it can happen. So my passion for sure is business and business owners. We're a unique breed for sure. And I additionally, again, back to my story, was for a while I stayed at home with my kids and I found myself picking up little odd jobs and things that I could do. So there was also this part of me that had a passion for providing opportunities for women. And regardless of their stage of life or where they're at or what's important to them, having ways for them to connect and to be fulfilled professionally and personally.
What inspired that? I love it.
So when I was having my kids, I have a 17-year-old now, like remote anything was just not an option. And so I was constantly picking up weird gigs. Like I was a receptionist. Some guy gave me a cell phone and I answered for his driving school. And so I'd be at the park and my kids knew like when I picked up the phone, they had to go quiet. And so I was just always kind of picking that up. But that led me to realize that there were a lot of business owners that just needed kind of some fractional help. Like I don't have a budget for an employee, but man, if somebody could handle the phones or man, if somebody could get these agreements out. And that's what I found myself doing. And then fast forward to starting Bosun, I realized I have a whole fleet of women and friends that I know that would love to work 10 hours a week and use their expertise in sales or marketing or accounting and help these business owners. So the idea was really brought out of matchmaking that. and saying,
Ah,
hey, Sally would love to work 10 hours doing bookkeeping and Bobby needs a bookkeeper, and really kind of bridging that and then being able to support both sides of those.
how did you get started? Okay, begin. And I'm going to ask the question, then I'm going to say something else before I let you
Okay.
answer,
Yeah.
because I feel like that is the tactical is so important. And I'm thinking about women that are listening to this going, okay, that sounds great. How did you start? Can you drop us into the moment where you maybe made your first call or first matchmaking and then how it progressed from there?
Yeah, so I don't have a lot of fear. I'll just be honest with you. I just truly believe like it's going to be fine. What's the worst can happen? It can fix it. The catalyst though was the individual that I was supporting was a business owner. I was his full-time EA and he retired. So I was kind of like, well, I'll go back to my roots. My kids were still little, so I needed to be home for carpool. I'll be a virtual assistant. That's really what it was, the
Mhm.
catalyst to it. And then again, I realized within about 2 weeks, I had so many business owners coming to me and being like, can you help? Can you help? Can you help? That I was maxed out, that I was like, okay, this is a
Wow.
business and I'm going to flip this. And again, I'm going to call on all these women. We've lived all across the country. So I had a wide, vast network that I could call on. And it was really just going to business owners. And, I always say I'm a horrible salesperson, but I truly have a passion for helping people. And
Mhm.
so being able to just hear what they're needing and going, I can solve this for you. And then having a great team behind me to support that, like it was just an easy, it was an, I mean, I always say I'm just selling help. So actually it's very simple. And every business owner or department head or whatever that looks like needs help. And I just feel uniquely suited to be able to find that for them.
I love that you mentioned that you don't have a lot of fear. I'm
No.
thinking about the woman listening who does and doubts herself. What advice would you offer that person?
So I would just I mean, my MO in my head whenever I'm going to start anything is I just go, what's the worst that can happen? Like
So
the
just
worst,
ask that question.
just ask, what's the worst thing? So the worst thing is I start this, it's not successful. I'll go get another job. I mean, I have no ego. So like anything foolish just flies off my back because I'm like, I tried it. And sometimes that's just all you can do. So I think just really breaking down like what that fear is. Is it pride? Is it fear of failure? In my book, and anyone who's ever sat in an entrepreneur business owner seat goes, we know that failure is just around the corner at any moment. So there's no judgment in that at all. Um, but really just break down what that is and then do the best that you can to prepare to counteract any of those things. It's just
Hmm.
like having kids, right? You can save, you can read every book, you can do whatever, but ultimately at some point you just got to jump and trust yourself. And
Hmm.
know that you'll use everything that God has given you to the best of the ability to make this successful. But there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees in corporate. There's no guarantees in owning your own business, but you got to believe in yourself.
How do you think you got that confidence? Because it sounds great and I'm with you, but I'm thinking about that person that doesn't trust herself or doesn't have
Yeah.
the confidence.
I think a lot of it was my upbringing. It was a very, you better figure it out. I mean, it was just kind of like, I'm 15 years old being dropped off at a medical lab and you run it now, figure it out. So I have a lot of figure
Did
it
that
out.
happen?
Oh, 100%. No, my
That's a
whole
great
life
word
has been,
picture.
my whole life has been figure it out. It's also why I'm a really bad trainer because I'm like, well, you train people? I've never been trained. I don't know what that looks like. So I think that and just my parents having confidence in me to figure it out. Um,
Yeah.
and just knowing like you can and you sort of develop that like capability inside. Doesn't mean that it always works out for the best, but you feel resilient to pivot to whatever needs to be done, or hey, I tried my best on that. Now I've learned, I'm moving on to this.
Hmm.
But I think that was a huge piece of it. It was a very kind of self-sufficient, figured out childhood. And I think that just makes you a little bit fearless in adulthood.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that you had that upbringing and that was instilled in you because so many people didn't.
Yeah.
And, I obviously the whole cultural, how we've been culturally conditioned as women also to not speak up as much. And has there ever been a time, I feel like maybe there hasn't been because you're so fearless, but Has there been a time that you'd be willing to share where you didn't speak up, but you wish that you had?
Mm. So I think it's twofold because while I am fearless, and sometimes people go, "How are you an executive assistant?" Like, I don't feel the need to be like the loudest in the room or control the room. I really don't. I truly, and my EA life was really built on just supporting others. But again, your goal was to accomplish whatever their goals were, right? And making it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's why I succeeded in that. But I don't have in me the like, women power, I need to be at the head of the table. That's not in me. It really isn't. If you want me at the head of the table, I'll do it, but I don't have to be that person. So
Mm-hmm.
that piece really isn't inside of who I am. But I think the biggest thing, back to your question, would really be like any time that I've probably gone against my gut, which I think
Okay.
most people feel that way, where you just kind of knew there were some flags, but ultimately you wanted it to work so bad that you pushed forward. I think we're all guilty of that in some places, but those are the times where I'm like, why didn't I just listen to myself? Like, I knew this, that one comment made me think this. I should have stopped it there. But sometimes you don't want to believe it, you don't want to know it, and so you push it down and push forward, but it always comes back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Boy, what do you think, or in who in your life? It sounds a little bit like your parents, but other than your parents, who has made the biggest impact on you, and what's been the impact that you would say they've made?
So it would for sure be my husband. And because as much as I say that I'm fearless and willing to try everything, he is the stable safety net that is there at all times. So in a lot of ways, it's very easy to feel emboldened when you know that you have this secure safety net behind you, right? And sometimes that can be parental, sometimes that can be spouse. Sometimes I see people where they kind of keep a full-time job to then transition. And so 100% that's what it would be, is just having that steadiness. I mean, he's the rock and the stable person of all sides of our family. And so that enables me to go out and try new things and be a risk taker and do all this because I know that our children are still going to be fed. We're still going to have a home. I don't have those worries, and I don't take that for granted because I know a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't. And so that fear and that pressure is a lot higher than it is for me.
Mm-hmm. What thinking about women that are interested in starting a business, but they're not sure where to start and what to do? What advice would you offer for them?
So I would say first and foremost, like find your passion because there's going to be a lot of dark times and hard times. And if it's why, I mean, I'm not going to offend anyone, but it's why like, quote unquote, multi-level marketing has never appealed to
Mm,
me. That's not my passion. So
yeah.
I'm gonna like go crazy and get out of bed every morning to make sure that I'm selling, this widget. Probably not. And I think the same can be true when you're starting a business. So really finding whether it's a why, whether it's a give back, whether you find that you are naturally inclined to being talented at this, whatever that is, like find that first. And then just make sure as you're growing that you're bringing people in that have the skill sets that you may not have, because those are going to be very important. Don't find your best friends to bring them into the team. Find the people where there's holes in my abilities and I need to bring that in. But without that passion, without that why, it's going to fade real quick.
Oh my gosh, do I resonate with that?
Yeah, it goes fast.
Lots
That
of
that
down
nice
days.
shiny ball gets dull real quick if you don't.
Yes. Oh my goodness. What would you say has been the most fun? Well, let me put it this way. What are you most proud of in your life?
Mm. So I remember this moment really clearly. It was, I think, our like first year, and we were doing tax prep and everything. And we got our like 1099s that we had sent out, which was essentially all of our workers. And it was over $100,000 in income that was generated in like our first 6 months of business. And
Wow.
that just made me like literally I could cry, exceptionally proud of it, because when we were first married and had kids, I stayed at home and we were in California. We were on one income. I mean, when I say we were not destitute, there's obviously people beyond that, but it was like if I got one Starbucks in a month, that felt like the biggest treat of my life kind of money, right? Like you
Hmm.
have nothing to spare. And so I really just thought like I would have killed for something like this. If I could have made $500 a month, that would have felt like the lottery to me. So to think that I was able to create something that was that lottery money to them, quote unquote,
Oh.
it just was like, that's a vacation fund. That's a car payment. That's saving for college. I make no bones. I'm not making six-figure career people, but I am providing a way for women that would not have the opportunity to be in the workforce otherwise and can still contribute to their families.
Mm-hmm. What a beautiful, rewarding thing.
Yeah, it's fun.
Seriously.
It is fun.
I just feel your passion too and your heart to help people. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
it's fun.
What is something that I haven't asked you that you would like to share?
Oh man, haven't asked me. Um, ooh, let's see. Now you're gonna stump me. Um,
I can ask you another
um,
question if you want to
I'm
think
really
about it.
trying to think. Yeah, maybe
Let me
give me a
ask you
second.
something else. Well,
Okay.
you can kind of have that in your head if you want, because I do want to ask you this. What is the hardest thing you've ever done?
Ooh. So I'll stay in the world of business, and that's actually one question that I was when you mentioned that I was going to say, because I get this a lot because I did grow up in a very workaholic family. I for sure have those genes in me. I remember going to Manhattan when I was like 21 years old and seeing people working at 3 a.m. and I was like, that looks amazing. I would love to do that. And my husband was like, "What is wrong with you?" So I for sure have that in me. So I think the hardest thing for me, and this would be a question that I do get asked a lot, is like, so where are you on that scale with your own children? And I was recently down at a coaching group, and the number one thing that these entrepreneurs were saying was they struggle with time and the time management and their families and feeling the pressure to grow this. And so it is the hardest, but probably one of the more prouder things I am is that I really do keep that balance in check. And it is hard.
Mm,
We just did a post recently, took my daughter to San Diego last week. It was not a great time for the business. It was really busy. I had to turn a lot of work down to be able to take this time off. But I'm so passionate about making sure that they always know that they're first within reason. They still have chores, but that mom's work is not over priority them and really making sure that that balance is there while also trying to train them to work hard. And so
yeah.
anything that we do, we really are like, okay, God has blessed us with this and we have to work hard for this and we need to be thankful for it. And when you see mom and dad working hard, like remember that's where these things come from. And so it's a fine line and it's very hard as a business owner to walk it because it's very tempting, especially when deals are on the line to
Yeah.
not shove kids in front of TVs and just keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you thought about what I could ask you or what you want to share?
Well, so that's what I was gonna say is really like I get that a lot is like, well, how are you balancing that given how
Yeah.
much you had to work as a child? My kids don't have to work nearly that much, but I do want them to be able to appreciate that. And that is a question I get quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. What's next for you?
So this stage I've added a bunch of team members and so we're really excited. We're on our almost 7th year now. So it's kind of that
Wow.
next phase of business. And I actually just took a little piece of what we were doing with Bosun in actually podcast world and launched another company. So I have 2 companies running right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so that's been a big step to now kind of balance 2 different teams and growing 2 different companies. But I'm very, very thankful.
That's so cool. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. I love it.
it's been really
Well,
fun.
I love your personality, Nicole. So I want to ask you something
Fun.
sort of a little fun, kind of provocative.
Okay.
Tell us about your first kiss.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, well, funny enough, it would what I would consider my first kiss would actually be my husband. We met at 17.
What?
So yeah, so it was very early. And so we've been together like forever. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so romantic. I
Yes.
love it. I love it. What are
Yeah.
you promoting? How can we support you and how can people find you?
So the biggest thing I would say is we just are trying to get the word out that there are other ways to bring in your team. So specific for your audience is really that we really believe that your revenue and your labor should be tied together. And that's how we built our own businesses. So
Mm.
the fractional support, what people really think of as like a virtual assistant, we go so much beyond that. So all of the operational functions that are needed to be done. That's what we do, but at a fractional and a cost savings level. So I would just encourage listeners, if they are feeling like they are just drowning and overwhelmed, and man, like I mentioned, the driving school, if I could just get someone to handle my calls, or I'm running out of my emails, or no one does my social media, that's what we do for very, very low cost. And so we're just focusing this year on really getting the word out there, because I think it's a side of staffing that people are unaware of, and we are trying to help that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wonderful. Well, Nicole, such a pleasure to have you. Thank you for your energy and your passion for
Aw.
all that you do. I really am very grateful to have had you.
Thank you so much. It was great being here.
And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.